Hi, old man here. Are you looking to buy a new boat? If so, stand by because I'm going to give you step-by-step process, what I did and what you should do to narrow down and get that boat. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm not sponsored by anybody, so whatever boat you decide is going to be the best boat for you. The first step in the process is defining your fishing style. In this case, bass fishing style, right? Are you going to fish in lakes, rivers, reservoir? Where are you going to concentrate your fishing? Where are you going to go? Where do you think you're going to go the majority of the time? Is it going to be shallow water? Is it going to be like deep water with some structures? Are you just casual fisherman? Are you going to be a tournament guy? Do you plan on going out a lot by yourself, or do you plan on going out with your buddies? These are all things that you need to first think about and define as you progress to buying your new boat. The second step is going to be setting your budget, right? This is obviously probably the most important step, because how much money am I willing to spend? When I was looking at buying my boat, my first experience back when I was much younger, I went on my friend's boat, and that's what got me interested in bass fishing. That's when I decided this is what I want to do when I get older, or when I can afford it. That boat was an aluminum tracker. I think he paid less than $10,000 for the boat. So in my ignorance, I thought, when I was looking at a boat for myself many years later, that for like $18,000 or $20,000 I could buy this nice bass boat. Well, sorry, my friends, bass boats typically run in the range of about the basic models, about $20,000 to $100,000, even over, depending on what you get and what kind of boat you're going to get. Is it going to be an aluminum boat? Is it going to be a fiberglass boat? How big is the engine size? How big is and that's going to be pretty much dependent on the size of the boat, right? So if you get a 17-foot boat, it's going to have this size engine, 20-foot or less boat, this size engine, and anything above that, this size engine. That, and it comes down to the engineering and the transom strength and all of that. But typically, the higher the engine, it's a huge jump between like a 150 horsepower engine and a 250 horsepower engine. So that's something you kind of need to think about as well. And then, of course, if it's a bass boat, you got to talk about the trolling motor. Am I going to have a 24-volt trolling motor with just two batteries, or a 36-volt? What electronics come standard on the boat? What do I need to add any? Because most of them come standard with something, but it's likely not going to meet your needs. So just keep that in mind. Also, although I don't think this is the case anymore, but you need a trailer. So I think that, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that all bass boats you buy now, brand new, are going to come with their own trailer that they say that designed specifically for that size boat and for that boat. And then, of course, the little nitnoid stuff, the required gear. Do you have safety, float, fire extinguisher, life jackets, anchor, ropes, all that stuff that you kind of forget about. But those are all going to be put into what I call setting your budget, right? These are all going to be factors that you need to consider when you think about how much money you're willing to spend and how much you can afford. The third step we're going to talk about is the must-have bass fishing features. In my opinion, there are 6 features that I think are vitally important when it comes to bass fishing boats. The first one is going to be the large deck, right? So you want to have ample space so that you can cast and move around. Definitely, when it comes to buying a boat, and again, what you can afford, but you want to get as much space as possible. The wider the boat, the more stability you're going to have as well. Second is rod lockers, right? So you need to have storage on your boat. You need to have ample storage, preferably lockable storage. It should be secure. It should have tie downs, all of these things. And most boats do, but that's something you should think about. The third is live wells. The live wells, do they have an oxygenator? Does the water, how difficult is it? How big is the live well? Does it have a divider? How quickly can I fill the live well up? Does it have auto feature, recirculate feature? All of these kind of things, it's important because if you decide to do tournaments and you catch bass and they die, we don't want that. A next feature that a lot of people, I have 2 of them on my boat, is going to be the shallow water anchors. Whether you get the Talons or the Power Poles or whatever you decide to go with, or the Raptors like what I have, shallow water anchors are really, really handy for a lot of different fishing areas, a lot of different times. It's really good. They're really good. Why too? If you get just a single, your boat's gonna spin around. If there's any tide, if there are current, there's any wind, you stuck a point and your boat's just gonna spin. So with 2, it anchors it securely. They're really quiet. Then you can talk about again where you're fishing. How deep do I need? I have 8 foot, which is in reality you're 5 to 6 feet of depth. They work pretty well. Shallower, they work fantastic. But you're not going to 8 foot down. You need them to go into the ground quite a bit. So you're not going to get, if you're in 8 feet of water, you need more than 8 feet of shallow water anchor to get it to work. Then trolling motor is another big thing. As another big feature that you need to think about. Do I want stop lock? I think most, no, not most. But that's like a huge feature with the trolling motor. You just push a button and it keeps you stationary, GPS locked to that location. It's very convenient. They have, like mine, I have an Ultrex, a Minn Kota Ultrex, and I can work with my graphs and I can plot paths where it autonomously drives my boat. Anyway, this is a preference, depending on a lot of factors, how your devices talk to one another. If you want to have this like one boat network where your units and your trolling motor, all of this, and your shallow water anchors and everything talk together, then that kind of drives you to certain brands. I'm not going to get into the individual brands or the differences because, again, that's a preference, a personal preference, and it depends on your needs and your wants and your desires. But it's something to think about, and it's an important feature, and it's something you should definitely look into. Compare the different brands, find out exactly what you think you're going to need, and then make a decision based on that. And then again, rolling right into this one boat network, we're going to talk about the fish finders, your units now, because there's so much more than fish finders. They're unbelievable. You can have touch screens, you can have dials, different resolution, different sizes. And as I'm getting older, my vision isn't very good, so the bigger the size of the unit, astronomically more expensive, but I can see much better and have much more resolution and clarity when I'm looking at different things. Again, it all comes down to your budget, your needs, your wants, and your desires, but that's the last feature we're going to talk about. Now the fourth step in the process is going to be go to a dealership, meet with a dealer. The big thing about going to a dealership, and I don't care which one you go to, they're going to have all their brand new boats out there. So you can get on there, you can look at it, you can see what they come with, what standard, what add-ons are available, all of that stuff. But they also have used boats. Most will have used boats. So you can kind of start to compare. If you have two different brands you're kind of focused on, maybe they have both of them there, and you can kind of get a feel for, which boat which boat you prefer, which boat you like. You know, when you're up close and personal on the boat and checking it out, then you can see. You can also, you know, look at what support the dealer provides. You know, do they have maintenance or service? You know, how close are they? How reliable are they? How quickly can they turn things around? If you go online and you start reading about service nightmares when it comes to boats. Yeah, like I took my boat in to get serviced, and you know they had it for 2 months, and well, who wants that? You know, I mean, the whole purpose of to get a boat is to get it on the water, and if you have to put it in service for whatever, you know, whatever reason, and they keep it for weeks or months, oh, that's just time off the water, and that's frustrating for everybody. And then lastly, if you do decide, you know, like, hey, I'm going to buy this brand new boat from you, what are my options? You know, I mean, I know like typically online, there'll be, I can rig it this way or I can rig it that way. What about the dealer? Do they have incentives? Do they have things they can do outside of the manufacturer? Like, I'm not sure what, but you can ask them and have those discussions and see what it is. What's really cool, and I didn't know about this, and again, I own a Vexus, so I went to a Vexus dealer, and he was more than a Vexus dealer. He had multiple different boat brands, but he invited me to come down for a test drive. So where he physically, could meet him at the lake and get on the boat and take it for a drive. You know, I think that's awesome. I didn't realize that they did that. But dude, that's how else you're going to determine if it's comfortable, the fishability, the stability of the boat, all of these things. Yeah, you know, how fuel efficient it is, how fast, what's my top speed going to be? Like my boat, for those of you that don't know, is called an AVX 1980. And I have a 150 horsepower motor on my boat, which means my boat goes top end, that's about 50 miles an hour. Now, for me that's plenty fast enough. Now, for the 250 guys, my boat is so slow. When they're hitting upwards of 70 plus miles an hour, a huge difference. But again, go out, take a test drive. Most dealerships will do it, and then get a, you know, hey, let me see what it feels like. Let me see what it's like. I mean, it's like you wouldn't buy a car without doing that. Why would you buy a boat? Okay, the sixth step. Let's talk about the money, right? What financing options are available if you're not paying cash for this boat? What rebates are available? What, you know, if you're a veteran, do they have a military discount, veterans discount? Does the boat manufacturer have a promotion? Does the motor, let's say you're putting a Mercury on your boat, does Mercury have a promotion? Are there any free upgrades available? When you talk to the dealer about the price, you know, what are the loan terms? You know, people, I think you'd be surprised. You know, you can get a loan term for a boat 20 years. I mean, depending on how much money it costs, but I mean, it's a huge investment. I mean, you could, anyway, but to talk to them about that, what's the current interest rate? You know, what kind of warranties do they have? Do they have extended warranties? Insurance, what does he recommend? So all of these things, all the discussions can be had because again, we're talking about the money you're going to spend, whether it's yearly, over time. You need to know that. Okay, now, once we're going to get to step 7, which I'm going to call negotiating the deal. So once you have decided on a boat and you've decided that this boat is going to meet your needs, now go in and negotiate, right? So it's not like buying a car. It's more like a fixed deal where they'll say, well, no, this is the price. You know, you built your boat out and it's going to be $65,000. That's what you're paying, $65,000. Well, let me tell you something. These dealers need to fight for your business, right? I understand that there may be very little wiggle room on the actual price of the boat, but that doesn't mean you can't upgrade. You can't get a better trolling motor. You can't get a discount on upgrading your electronics. You can't get, hey, poles, rods and reels, life jackets, fire extinguisher, safety gear, ropes. I mean, these little things add up. And I think you should take the time when you meet with your salesperson to negotiate this, to, hey, and if you guys agree to some terms and you agree to throw in these little things for you, even clothing. I mean, everything. Get what you can. I mean, you're spending a lot of money. It's a huge investment. To them, shirt and all these little things, it's nitnoid. It's not very much, but to you, it's a big deal when it comes to spending your money, your hard-earned money. Step 8 is going to be finalizing the paperwork and delivery. So there's a couple ways to go on this one. So if you buy a boat that's right there, that the dealer has, well, all you got to do is do the financing paperwork or pay for it, however you decide to do it. Fill out some paperwork and take ownership of this boat. It's pretty easy. But if you, like I did, if you build out a boat on the manufacturer's website, you have to wait. There's a waiting game because they need to build your boat. Like when I bought my boat, I went down there. I put, I think, 10% down or something. I had to give them some money. That's basically, hey, I'm for real gonna, if I build this boat out and they make this boat, the chances of me actually accepting this boat is high, right? Because I've got some scratch in the game. I got some money involved. So when I built my boat out, I was expecting, it's where technology's advanced to the point where I was expecting like when you build your house, you see all the different phases of the boat build. And I assumed in my head it was going to be something like that. When in reality, it was like a couple months and I don't hear anything. I was pretty frustrated, I'll be honest. I was pretty frustrated. I'm like, what is going on? They haven't even given me anything like hey, we're starting on your boat email or anything, right? And so I called my sales guy and he's like, listen, this is different than what you're used to. When they notify you that your boat is now being built, from that point to where you actually receive the boat is like 2 weeks. I mean, it's really, really fast. So you just have to be patient and just understand that it's a process. And if you get what you want and you do something that's not readily available, it's not on the lot of your dealership, then you can expect these kind of delays. So think about if you want to fish in the springtime, well, you might want to get your boat a little bit earlier than that. Put that in, allow yourself 2 or 3 months so that they can build the boat to your specifications and you can get the boat to be ready to put the boat in the water in the spring. You can't think you're going to just walk in, buy a boat in March, and then 2 weeks later be on the water, especially if they're building it. That's not realistic. So be prepared for that. Also need to think about is that a lot of people buy boats in spring. So that line that you're in is going to get longer. So keep that in mind as well. Now, the last step we're going to talk about is going to be preparing yourself for your first trip. Now, getting the boat, prior to getting the boat, prior to getting your boat and putting it in the water or taking ownership of your boat, you need to understand, how am I going to tow the boat? Where am I going to store the boat? How am I going to launch and recover the boat? If this is your first boat, like in my case it was, I spent this time, this gap of time that I waited for my boat to learn about all of these things. How. I already felt comfortable fishing, but I needed to know, how do I launch? How do I recover? What do I need? What am I forgetting? Oh crap, I need a transom saver. What is that? Oh, okay, now I understand. So I need that too. So there's all these things. Now, I was lucky because I had a very good salesman that said, "Hey, these are things you're forgetting, and these are things that you're going to need." And I think that no matter where you go, you're going to have a salesperson or you're going to have someone knowledgeable in that area to help you bridge these gaps and do this. But you need to prep for all that, you know. You need to get ready. You need to make sure that all your ducks are in a line so when you put it in the water, you can enjoy it and have a good time. And last, I'm going to throw a little bonus in there. I know I talked about my Vexus. I really love my Vexus. I have an aluminum boat. Guess we can talk real quick about the difference between aluminum and fiberglass. How do I want to, like, an aluminum boat is typically good. Well, not typically. Aluminum boats are lighter. They're going to be good for shallow water, very good for shallow water. For small bodies of water, they're going to be good. Now, my boat, and they make aluminum boats now similar to my boat that can go in rough water, that can go in. They're like a hybrid, or they're kind of bridging the gap between fiberglass and aluminum boats of the past. But I'm just saying, when I say tin boats or aluminum boats standard, I'm not talking about that higher end aluminum boat. So typically an aluminum boat is going to be lighter, good for shallow water, good starter boat, very good starter boat, you know. If you make a mistake, you hit something, you know, whatever, God forbid, whatever. It's much easier to swallow a small dent or a scratch than ripped up fiberglass that costs thousands of dollars to repair. Now, with that said, a fiberglass boat, they're going to be heavier, they're going to be faster, they're going to be smoother ride. They're going to be what most people use in tournaments. They're just going to be bigger, you know. So what bigger means bigger live wells, bigger engine, more fuel capacity, more storage, more deck space, everything. And definitely, because you're spending that money, it's going to be much more comfortable ride. So that's the difference between aluminum and fiberglass boats. Now with companies, you know, I'll just talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have six in front of me. Not talking about Vexus, because I've talked about Vexus again. But just kind of give you an idea of some of the brands that I looked at when I was purchasing my boat. First one is a Tracker. Tracker is Bass Pro Shop. It's very affordable. It's a great like starter boat if this is your first boat. It's economical. It you know, it has everything you need to get out there and fish. Is it top end? No, but I mean, again, you know, what are you using it for? That goes back to all that. But I mean, that's a viable option. Ranger is like that's very classic, known for their premium feel, for their stable performance. It's higher quality. Anyway, they make very nice boats. And I think Ranger is now Bass Pro Shop as well. Nitro, which I think is also a Bass Pro Shop, they have a lot of pro level functions in their boat, but it's very economically priced, if that makes sense. So they're more focused, I think, on the value versus, I hate to say performance, because I think Nitro does well there too. I'll just call them value focused. Skeeter, dude, yeah. So now we're looking at higher price boats, but my goodness, they're really nice boats. I see them all the time out on the water. Very good boats. There's plenty of videos to go out there and talk about, or that go into the qualities and the differences between all of these boats. And anyway, Skeeter's a good one. Phoenix is another one. They're like different design. They're like more narrow, but they're really fast. Really nice. And then of course Bass Cat is another one that's top-notch quality. But again, So those are the boats. So if you're looking, if you want to try to get an idea, start narrowing down, Tracker, Nitro, Phoenix, Basscat, Ranger, Vexus. That's what I would start focusing on. Lund is also good as well, and there's so many I'm missing, and I apologize for those guys that own those boats, and I'm not mentioning it. It's not a slight. It's just I'm old, but really, I mean, you need to go and look and do some research. Get on YouTube, check it all out, and I'm sure that you'll find something that once you identify your needs, which is so critical, and how you're going to fish, what your requirements are, then purchasing the boat to meet them comes down to your budget. What do you want to spend? But anyway, that's all I got for today. That's how I would approach buying a brand new boat. That's how I did. And if I buy one in the future, that's what I'll do again. Anyway, this is Old Man out. You guys stay safe. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.